Good morning, folks. We're out here in the greenhouse. Well, by we, I mean Irene and I'm out here in the greenhouse. She's been doing some other things, and I'll show you a little bit about that. But what's happening today is really exciting for me because I'm finally getting a chance to repurpose a box that I built years ago for Irene's business. And we're going to do a lot more than what I'd originally planned because Irene found something awesome that I forgot we had in our utility building. We have a piece of shower pan liner that we bought years ago, probably 12-13 years ago when we were building our house. This was unused, so it was stuck in the utility building. I forgot it was up there. Irene remembered, she saw it, grabbed it, and brought it out. We're going to use this to make a liner for what's going to become a hydroponic floating raft tank. I'll show you the inside of this box. The problem with it is that it has some posts on the inside that were important for the use that it was originally designed for, but are really in the way now. Originally, I planned to just use some of this black plastic that I've used over the top of all these benches to make the watertight liner. But this stuff is a whole lot better, a whole lot stronger, and I think it's going to hold up a lot better. So what I have to do is remove all these internal posts. That means taking out a bunch of screws, and I'm going to replace it with some corner brackets to hold the box together. A little later on, we'll be putting this liner into the box, attaching it, cutting the corners so that it lays correctly, and then I'll be putting water in it and hope it holds water.
We're not going to cut the corners, it will hold water.
Irene says we're not going to cut the corners, but we're going to cut the corners to allow relief on the outside, not on the inside. So, come along and we'll see what happens.
Trying to move everything because you're One reason why this box was so strong was because I glued in these corner braces. These are just pieces of 2x3 cut to go along the corners. It provided additional stability for the heavy equipment that was carried in this box. That's not needed anymore. I'm going to just go ahead and get this PVC laid into the box. I'll wait for Irene to come back out and we'll work together to get this liner put into the box so that it lays flat, the corners are straight, and it will hold water. And then we'll try the ultimate test. Does it hold water?
Well, do you want to try help getting this thing set?
Sure. Okay, that's about right side to side. The question is, how much do we want over the ends?
Let's just put a couple of inches over the edge, maybe 3 inches or something on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and we can have more on the two sides. Well, now that we have the liner in place here, it's all stapled in. The water should hold everything in place just fine. I'm letting this tank fill up with some water, and then I'll be putting some of this insulation foam in. I have to cut it to size, but what I want to make sure is that it will float in this tank. So I'll adjust the width so that it doesn't hang up on the sides. The real reason why we need to get this done now is because Irene's had some starts in hydroponic grow material for a week longer than what it should have been. So I need to get this done now. I need to mix up some nutrients, and then I'll show you how we're planting those starts into this floating raft tank. Well, we've let this tank sit for the better part of 24 hours. There's no leaks in the membrane, which I really expected that we wouldn't have any leaks because it's been stored properly, it's not been abused, so no big worry. I need to pull a few things out of the tank. We had some flies and a couple of moths land in here, and I really don't need what they might bring. That water is surprisingly cold. Now I need to do a few things this morning. One is I need to measure the depth and total volume of this water so I can calculate the number of gallons. I'll show you how to do that later on here. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple math. If you have a calculator, I'll show you exactly how to go through that process. So that's number one. Number two, I need to determine the size of the raft that I'm going to put in this tank. First, let's get the depth measurements. It's 6.5 inches deep. The tank is 32 inches long. And is 23.5 inches wide. We'll use that information to calculate the number of gallons. This tank has the lining that sometimes pokes out into the tank a little bit. I need to make the raft be shorter than the width of the tank. Now this square is
2 inches wide on this arm, so I'll just mark along it. Using this ballpoint pen has left a little divot in the polystyrene. Now what I can do is use a utility knife to score that line a little deeper. The blade of the knife follows that score very easily. I'm going to run over the score a couple of times to deepen the cut. Now this blade is cutting about 3/4 of an inch deep. I should be able to line up the foam with the edge of the bench and press down. Now what I'll do is score the back side of the foam. Now I don't want this styrofoam to get hung up in the tank. If it does, it could leave the net pots up out of the nutrient solution, which would cause the plants to die. This looks like it's going to hold exactly where I want it. Now when I'm all done with making this raft, I'll make a cover that goes over the side to block light. That will help keep the algae growth down. You may be wondering how I'm going to put these net pots in this styrofoam. Well, I have a hole saw. I'm going to use a hole saw that will cut holes in the styrofoam so that the net pot slides all the way down but catches on this upper lip. I'll show you how that's done here in just a second. Now I'm going to mark spots where I want to drill holes about every 6 inches on center. Now because this sheet is not a full 24 inches wide, I've left only 2 inches between this pot and the edge of the float. Now comes the boring part. One, two, three, four. I need to drill 16 holes. Before I started cutting holes in this piece of plastic, I did 2 different size holes. This hole is for a 2-inch outside diameter. This hole is for a 2-inch inside diameter. The 2-inch inside diameter fits these pots just perfectly. So that's what I'm drilling. The drilling doesn't take very long. It's pretty fast. I just make sure I have the styrofoam where I'm not going to be drilling through something else. There's no real need to back the styrofoam with anything as long as you're careful. This styrofoam board is pretty tough. When you're pulling the pieces of foam out of the hole saw, you can use a sharp instrument, not too sharp, something like a pair of scissors. Just reach in and pry that core out of the way. Now, when you're taking the core out of the hole saw, make sure you turn. Well, I'm gonna have to get a little more of that foam out of there. When you're pulling that piece of foam out, turn it the opposite direction that the hole saw cuts. That saves you fingers. You can ask me how I know. Yeah, make sure you brush all of the pieces of foam off the board before you try floating it in the tank again. The foam won't really hurt anything. It just gets to be a bit of a mess sometimes. Nice cucumber, Irene.
It is.
The net pots just drop into the hole and float in the raft.
And the water level is down about an inch from the top of this basket. So the water level goes to right about here. All that's left to do now is add the nutrients, put the net pots in with the plants. I'll be using some expanded clay balls to hold the lettuce plants in place. Well, all I need to do now is go calculate the number of gallons that go into this tank, mix up some nutrient solution, plant some lettuce, and put a top over this to keep the light out. I hope this has helped you understand how you can build a water culture system that uses a floating raft tank. We'll be putting an air stone in the bottom of this to keep the roots healthy, and I may do a few other things. I'll show you that in the next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because as many crazy things as I'm doing, Irene's doing more in the garden. In fact, she just harvested a huge cucumber. It's about 16 inches long. Guess there's going to be some Japanese pickles in my future. We'll talk with you later. Bye.